I'm one with the Force is with me.
I'm one with the Force. The Force is with me. And I'm one with the Force.
Welcome to the Dharma of the Force, a podcast about the spiritual and philosophical side of Star Wars. If that puts you off, it's just words. And if you think that's all a bunch of mumbo jumbo, even better. We cannot widen our horizon and grow by never challenging what we believe, and we should always be suspicious of those who tell us what to believe. In some Buddhist traditions, listening to Dharma talks is a spiritual practice. It's not meant to give answers per se. It's an exercise in looking at questions and elaborating on them and finding the truth within yourself. So in that spirit, let us look at today's topic. Lessons from The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian has given us a whole new assortment of quotable slogans. While it makes for nice catchphrases, I think we're missing the point with some of them and shouldn't be too quick to use them without giving it an extra thought, which is why I decided to do an episode about the lessons learned in The Mandalorian. I think it's a bit like watching the first third of Clockwork Orange, idolizing the Drogs, or only reading the first chapters of Dickens' Christmas Carol, thinking you get Ebenezer Scrooge and modeling your behavior on his at this point. I'm talking about the plot points that ultimately lead to show Din Djarin's growth. He started off as a rather small-minded and egoistic loner, while sentences like "I'm a Mandalorian, weapons are my religion" seem like a cool and badass thing to say and put on our bumper sticker. When you look at it more closely, it was actually meant to paint him as a small-minded and ignorant zealot, and it turns out it's actually a pretty dumb thing to say. Having lost his parents, he was basically raised by extremists and adopted their beliefs as his own without ever questioning them. According to Campbell's hero's journey, the protagonist is faced with obstacles out of his comfort zone that lead to his growth. Without getting too much into real-life parallels, I think we can all come up with some examples of people adapting some wild ideas without challenging them. Season 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian perfectly demonstrated the evolution of the character. More and more he's being forced to come out of his shell, quite literally by being put in situations outside of his comfort zone. It shows him there is more to life than he previously knew. I can only repeat myself when I say it's easier to pretend we know all there is to know and close ourselves off from new experiences. But in order to grow, we need to step outside of this bubble. Or, according to the hero's journey, somehow being forced outside of it. Now, how do I put this without offending anyone? I think it's ironic to quickly jump on that sentence using it as pro-gun rights slogan when it's a narrative element to highlight the evolution of the character. So basically to demonstrate how ignorant and quotation marks radical he still was at this point.
Ironic.
Same goes for "this is the way." By itself, there's nothing wrong with that statement, of course. It almost sounds Taoist. The Tao in Taoism is literally way, so you could call it the Wayism. But the teachings differ, of course, very much those of the covert Mandalorians living in exile. And there's a real-life parallel here. If you are a displaced minority, you will often display more pride in your heritage in an attempt to preserve your culture. While this doesn't apply to everyone, this then of course also leads to varying levels of nationalism and radicalization, or overzealousness as some sort of overcorrection. And that seems to be exactly what we see in The Mandalorian. The covert Mandalorians are portrayed as some sort of martial cult with strict rules and guidelines, so not necessarily a very balanced crowd. Through Bo-Katan, Din is first confronted with another way of thinking, and learns, in fact, that there is more than one way. I don't think I have to spell it out, and I'm repeating myself now, but over the course of 2 seasons we see his change from a cold-hearted bounty hunter who hides behind his credo to someone who starts caring for others and finally learns that he is basically in many ways hiding behind his armor. And slowly he's coming out of his shell. I use that word again as it best describes it. First it's the chin, when he drinks next to Grogu. Then it's the realization that he needs to change into the transport driver's armor for the plan to work, and that there are more important things than the belief he has been clinging to as moral compass all his life, because it's the only thing he has ever known. Then, to avoid the downfall of everyone, he is forced to take the helmet off, something unthinkable earlier in his journey. And ultimately, of course, as the climax to mirror Darth Vader, he takes off the helmet to see Grogu with his own eyes, as a sign of trust and affection, in a "you mean more to me than my Mandalorian coat" kind of gesture.
Just for once, let me look on you with my own eyes.
I'm curious to see where they take the character from here, because as far as character development, he has almost completed his arc. I'm sure Favreau and Filoni will continue to find the right balance of storytelling, a good mix of the adventure of the week and the search for more knowledge and context. I'm not ignoring the Darksaber storyline here, I just think it's too early to guess how that is gonna affect his choices and destiny. The prequels have shown how a good-hearted boy can turn into a villain. The original trilogy has shown how a farm boy can become a hero. The sequel trilogy has shown how we all choose our own destiny, and it doesn't matter where you're from or who your parents are. The Mandalorian turned that around and showed that there is a way for an anti-hero to find good in himself and find a path to redemption. It's Star Wars at its best. Like Dave Filoni said in a recent interview, Star Wars is always about hope.
What is it they've sent us?
Hope.
If you want to support me or this podcast, don't send money. I don't have a Patreon. Find a charity of your choosing and donate. And do yourself a favor and switch off your phone, disconnect, and just sit in silence for a few minutes. Close your eyes and
Breathe. Just breathe.